You didn't plan to say that much. It just came out. One detail led to another, and suddenly you were explaining things you normally keep to yourself. And in the moment, it felt right, relieving even. But later, something shifts. A quiet discomfort. Why did I say all that? Problem deep dive. It usually doesn't happen randomly. It happens in specific moments, when someone feels safe, or when a conversation gets slightly deeper. You start sharing something small, then something more personal, then something you didn't expect to say at all. And while you're talking, there's a sense of momentum, like you're being carried forward. You're not carefully choosing words anymore. You're releasing something, and it feels good for a moment, because you feel seen, understood, or at least closer to it. But hours later, or sometimes minutes later, that feeling changes. You start replaying everything, the tone, the details, the things you revealed. You imagine how it sounded, what the other person might think now, whether you crossed some invisible line. And the same moment that felt connecting now feels exposing, almost like you gave away too much of yourself. So you pull back, internally. You tell yourself, next time I'll be more careful. But then it happens again. And you're left wondering, why does it feel so natural in the moment and so uncomfortable afterward? 3. Reframe. You're not bad at boundaries. You're responding to emotional pressure. Because oversharing isn't random. It's a release, a shift from holding to letting go. Your brain isn't trying to sabotage you. It's trying to regulate something that's been building. So when the right moment appears, a sense of safety, openness, or connection, your brain lowers its filters. Not because it's careless, but because it senses an opportunity to release stored emotional weight. And in that moment, relief feels more important than restraint. But that relief comes with a delay, because another part of your brain hasn't spoken yet. And when it does, everything starts to feel different. So what exactly is happening between those two moments? 4. Psychological mechanism. To understand this, you need to see how two systems in your brain interact. The first is your emotional system, fast, reactive, driven by the need to release tension. This involves areas like the amygdala, which processes emotional intensity. When something feels safe enough, this system pushes you to express, to unload, to connect. Then there's the second system, your self-evaluation system, slower, more reflective, linked to the prefrontal cortex. This system monitors how you're perceived, how your behavior fits social expectations. But here's the key. These systems don't always activate at the same time. In emotionally open moments, your filtering system is reduced because your brain is prioritizing connection. This is called reduced inhibition. The gate that normally filters what you say becomes more relaxed, so thoughts and feelings flow out more freely. But later, when the moment ends, the gate closes again, and now your reflective system comes online, fully. It reviews everything, reconstructs the interaction, simulates how others might interpret it. This is called post-event processing. And because this system is cautious by design, it often focuses on what might have gone wrong. So the same words that felt natural earlier now feel like mistakes, not because they were, but because your brain switched modes, from expression to evaluation, and that shift creates the feeling of regret. But if this is automatic, how do you stay in control without shutting yourself down? 5. Practical framework. You don't need to stop expressing yourself. You need to regulate the transition between expression and reflection. 1. Notice the momentum shift. Oversharing often begins with a subtle change, from thinking to flowing. What to do? Pay attention to when your speech becomes faster, less filtered. That's the shift. Why it works. This increases awareness of reduced inhibition, allowing the prefrontal cortex to stay engaged. Real-life example. You start sharing a personal story. You notice you're adding more details than usual. That's your signal to slow down. 2. Create a pause inside the conversation. You don't need to stop talking, just create small breaks. What to do? Pause for a second between thoughts, even briefly. Why it works. This reactivates cognitive control and prevents emotional flooding. Real-life example. Instead of continuing immediately, you take a breath. You let the conversation breathe, and that changes the direction. 3. Define your comfortable limit beforehand. Regret often comes from crossing an invisible boundary. What to do? Decide in advance what level of sharing feels safe for you, not in the moment, before it. Why it works? Predefined boundaries reduce decision fatigue during emotional expression. Real-life example. You decide, I'll share general experiences but not deeply personal details yet. So when the moment comes, you already know where to stop. 4. Reframe the post-sharing feeling. That discomfort afterward is not always a mistake. What to do? Instead of asking, why did I say that? Ask, what was I trying to release? This shifts the brain from self-criticism to emotional understanding, reducing unnecessary shame. Real-life example. You realize, I wasn't being careless, I just needed to express something. That changes the meaning of the moment. 5. Normalize partial visibility. You don't need to be fully known in every interaction. What to do? Allow yourself to reveal things gradually, not all at once. Why it works? Gradual disclosure builds safety without overwhelming your emotional system. Real-life example. Instead of sharing everything in one conversation, you let connection build over time, and it feels more stable. Integration. At its core, this isn't about saying too much. It's about how your brain handles emotional release. You hold things in, thoughts, feelings, experiences, and when the right moment appears, your brain opens the gate, not perfectly, but quickly, because expression feels like relief. Then later, your mind closes the gate and looks back, carefully, critically. So what you experience as regret is really a mismatch between when you expressed and when you evaluated. But once you see that, something changes. You stop judging the expression and start understanding the timing. Quiet, empowering close. You're not too much. You're not careless. You're navigating two different needs, to be known and to feel safe. And sometimes those needs don't align perfectly. So you speak and then you reflect. And in that space between the two, you feel exposed. But that doesn't mean you did something wrong. It means something in you wanted to be heard. And maybe the goal isn't to shut that down, but to guide it gently so you can express without losing yourself afterward. Because being understood shouldn't come at the cost of feeling unsafe in your own mind. And with a little awareness, it doesn't have to.